So, on behalf of Mass CEC and the communities that may be considering running a Heat Smart or Solarize campaign in the future, I want to thank you for participating today in this interview. Our goal today is to capture your experience and the knowledge you gained from running your campaign so that it can be passed on to other communities in Massachusetts. And for our viewers today that may be less familiar with Solarize and Heat Smart, these programs seek to increase the adoption of small-scale solar electricity and clean heating and cooling technologies in participating communities through grassroots educational campaigns that are really driven mainly by local volunteers. And these community-led campaigns really help simplify the process of installing clean energy systems by pre-vetting an installer and offering transparent pricing for homeowners. So now I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Charlotte Fall, and I'm the Community Clean Energy Fellow at Mass CEC, helping to develop the Solarize and Heat Smart Toolkit. I'm joined today by Tim Walter, who was the solar coach for Solarize Plainfield in 2015. So let's get started. Could you quickly introduce yourself and briefly explain your role and responsibilities as a solar coach?
Yeah, I'm Tim Walter from Plainfield, and I was the solar coach in Solarize Plainfield, but we also partnered with two other neighboring towns, Ashfield and Buckland. And basically, Plainfield instigated that partnership. We called it the tail wagging the dog because we were smaller than either of the other two towns. And we went to members of our energy committee went to the select boards in Ashfield and Buckland and got them to agree to a partnership. So we partnered, and it was highly successful. We met lots of interesting people from the other two towns. And the bottom line is, prior to Solarize, we called it PAB, Plainfield, Ashfield, Buckland. There were in Plainfield 6 homes with solar, and by the time it was done, there were 38. So we added 32 homes in the course of about a year. And unfortunately, I don't have the numbers for the other towns, but I think it was well over 100. I think it runs in my mind about 117 homes got solar through Solarize PAB.
And prior to your Solarize campaign in 2015, were you specifically involved in any clean energy, sustainability, or climate action initiatives?
Well, I was on the energy committee, and I think I went on the energy committee in 2011. And through a course of resignations and stuff, I became the chair of the energy committee. And then we took 5 years and 3 town meeting votes to become a green community. So that happened. I think we became a green community in 2016. It was about the same time that we were doing the Solarize program. And but other than picking up trash on Earth Day and stuff like that, I can't say that I have, no.
Do you believe that Plainfield had interest in climate action before Solarize?
I think this community, it's called the Hilltowns or the Hilltowns of Western Mass, and I think there was quite a bit of awareness, environmental awareness, I guess I would say that. There is also, since then, there's a group, this is only a couple years old now, called the Plainfield Tree Alliance, and devoted to planting trees. A couple years ago, Eversource came through and cut down maybe 1,000 trees in town along their power lines. And the Tree Alliance did get them to give a donation to plant new trees away from power lines. And they're working on donations and other things to plant more trees in Plainfield. So I think there's a general awareness how much specific action there was on any specific purpose. There was a volunteer effort to plant some trees along South Central Street prior to the Plainfield Tree Alliance. So there were those things.
Sounds like Solarize came around at a good time then.
Yeah. And there is an active conservation commission as well. So.
Can you tell me a little about your Solarize campaign? For example, specifically which technology you chose and how you chose to promote it?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of on the far side of the digital divide. So what I did initially was just gather names and phone numbers and addresses of people who'd be interested in participating in Solarize. And we did that partly to attract installers. And we had well over 100 names or what the installers called leads. And when we finally got an installer and picked them, and I turned over these handwritten sheets, they were a little derisive. They wanted it to all be set up on electronics. But I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to go out with a clipboard and get names and addresses than it is to go out with a laptop or something and try to do it. So it was pretty low tech. But we had another member of our energy committee, Conrad Liebenau, who is a retired electrical engineer, and he did a lot of the digital stuff, and that was helpful. And it was wonderful with these other two towns interviewing the installers and finally picking one. Unfortunately, I don't know if you want how much detail you want me to go in, but we picked an installer, and then that installer backed out, and we had to go through the whole process again. So, but we ended up with we were fairly satisfied with the installer we got. So, and I can't even remember why the one backed out. I can't remember. It got in a fight with the Solarize, got in a fight with the state. I don't know what it was, something over the requirements. I think he was angry because he was from Williamstown or North Adams, and he had competed for Solarize before, and he lost. He didn't get his own hometown. So
I see. I see.
So I think that was part of it.
And can you tell me how long you ran the campaign for?
Well, let's see. I think about a year until we had all, I think it was about a year.
Did you decide to extend the campaign at all, or was it always planned to take a year?
No, I think it would, it lasted till everybody that had signed contracts had signed up. I did get a couple calls after it was over, people complaining about one thing or another. It had to do with the installer or things like that. One in particular I remember is a guy had it on his garage, and they had a side door to go in and out of the garage. And come wintertime, there was a lot of snow slides off, and that was an unexpected thing. And he wanted the company to pay for a covering. And so I heard about that was anyway, and that finally they worked that out somehow. So
when you were establishing your campaign, were there any specific goals that your group chose to try and meet to measure success?
Yeah, have as many people sign up as possible, and have more than any other partnership in the state. And I think we met that, except for Wellfleet. I think we had more as a percentage of our population sign up than anywhere else. So, and we had, and this is why it was so important to have the people from the state come out with the PowerPoint presentations and get people interested. And our town hall was packed on the first presentations. It was just so gratifying to see that. And the PowerPoints were slick, and they helped us with that, and it was absolutely imperative to have that. The other thing that helped a great deal was our installer, which was, oh God, I'm struggling for the name now. It will come to me. Anyway, Direct Energy Solar, which turns out is a pretty big conglomerate and has other stuff, but they provided lawn signs, which we were ready to pay $5 a piece, but they provide all these lawn signs, and I got those lawn signs up all over town. When they first came to town, they were just awed by the number of lawn signs, and I made a point of getting them on the major roads, and so it gave a sense of enthusiasm and joint stuff, and that was, I think, important just to see that physical presence out there.
So what were two marketing strategies that your team used that you believe were the most effective for reaching your community?
Well, gathering all the signatures and, or not signatures, but the addresses, having the meetings, And once we had the signatures and emails, sending out the invitations to invite people to the meetings and then having the PowerPoint. I would say that. I think having the lawn signs did a lot of good. I wish we'd had bumper stickers too. So anyhow.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
anyway,
And
those are the main things. And I think the cooperation with the towns and the group discount, I think, and the tiered level discount, I think that helped. And Direct Energy also had a incentive, I think, for the first 20 or 30 people that signed up, they gave a $500 discount. And so that helped. And anyway, but I think the group meetings and the PowerPoint presentations and sending out the emails to everybody that we had signed up to invite them to those meetings. And then we did have a sample installation. Somebody in town agreed we had coffee and donuts and people could come. We had maybe half dozen people. That was kind of a waste of time. So anyway, but
maybe a less effective.
Yeah, I think the most important thing was the group enthusiasm. Just so many people were getting solar, and it wasn't really a peer pressure, but it was just seeing other people do it lent to the other people wanting to do it.
We've had a lot of people note that as the reason that they actually sign up.
Yeah, really,
the word of mouth and
Yeah.
neighbors and everything.
Yeah, on our own home, we maxed out and we got a 12 kilowatt direct current system, which we figured we would grow into it. We haven't gotten heat pumps in our house, but we do have the electric car, and we're generating enough electricity to pay for all the electricity we use in the electric car, our whole house. We're giving 60% away to a church, and we still have $1,000 surplus credit. So I'm an enthusiast.
That's awesome. That's so good to hear.
Yeah.
So now can you tell me a little bit about any challenges that you experienced running your campaign as a partnership between multiple municipalities?
No, I don't think there were challenges. I think there were mainly gratifications. One day we went to Boston. I think there were 5 of us got into at that time I had a hybrid, and we drove to Boston, got on the T, and went into Boston downtown and had a presentation there. And what was nice about that, we were all crowded. There were 3 in the back and 2 in the front in this car, and we really got to know each other, people from Ashfield and Buckland and Plainfield. And it was really, rather than being a challenge, it was a help to have these other towns involved and to be partnering with them and getting to know people. One of them from Ashfield was an apple farmer, had a huge apple orchards, and he was very concerned about, I now call it global heating. I think climate change is too weak, and even global warming is too weak. It's global heating. But he was concerned about his apple crops. He'd already had solar installed, but it was very helpful to have people like that with their previous background. So I remember he had said he got far more money from his SRECs than he did from the electricity savings, and that proved to be true.
So as you ran your campaign as a partnership, can you tell us about some of the benefits of having a partnership with 2 other municipalities?
Yes, it brought expertise and knowledge. This Brian, who I was talking about, the apple orchard fellow, he also is an electrical engineer. So it brought a lot of expertise. He also lent his home for when we had meetings with the installers, when we were vetting the installers. So we had 2 electrical engineers. We had one from Plainfield, retired, and then Brian from Ashfield. And it was not only people's backgrounds, but also people's enthusiasm. People were very concerned about global heating.
And now, what suggestions or tips do you have for communities looking to run a Solarize campaign on their own? And that means that they don't have the direct support or funding from Mass CEC that you received.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I think that's a number one thing to have. But without it, I'd say to partner and try to find people that have expertise. But one of the other things that help, I'm sorry I'm being so long-winded, but the Mass CEC put out the request for proposals. And then as the program was fading away, we heard they weren't going to do that anymore. I was just shocked to hear that because it was so helpful to have that done. And because we had no expertise in that, or, and so I would say it's just important to reach out and I guess they could ask people who are solar coaches for help, but it was so helpful to have help from on high and from the state, and it was so helpful to be able to look at the map that CEC put out to see all the the other towns that had solarized and formed partnerships, and also the green community towns. Those things are helpful to look at because it encourages you to want to go forward and do it. Yeah, I don't know. Get in touch with solar coaches, but without the help from the state, it's a much more difficult job.
Could you provide just 2 tips on how to conduct outreach?
Well, like I said before, get some clipboards and sign-up sheets with people's name, phone number, address, and email. That's at least in terms of getting people involved initially. In terms of outreach, if you want to partner, go to energy committees. We're finding it difficult to do during the pandemic because some energy committees aren't even meeting, and go to select boards.
If you were running this campaign again during COVID-19 throughout this pandemic, so there's much less in-person interaction and events, what strategies would you implement, do you think, to run a more successful campaign?
Well, I don't know if it would work, but first of all, you'd have to get people's email addresses and send out invites to everybody in town and hope they would attend a group meeting, and then have the state, put on a PowerPoint presentation and get people involved. But how you would get people initially involved, you could go to a town meeting and we did that. We went, I think, to town meetings and gathered signatures of people that were interested. And but without actual town meetings, we did have a town meeting outdoors in Plainfield this past year, but it's much tougher with the pandemic to do any of this stuff.
Okay, one follow-up question.
Yeah.
During your campaign, did you utilize social media as an outreach technique at all?
Yeah, I think I personally didn't. The other towns may have, and I'm still on the far side of I'm not on Facebook, so I think the other people might have, but I don't think that was the main thing that got people. It was having the emails and inviting people to the meetings, the live in-person meetings, and having the PowerPoint. That's what got people involved. And then subsequent to that, after the installers were picked, having to meet the installer meetings and having another PowerPoint with the people from the installers there. That's what did it. And that's what got people to sign up.
Well, thank you so much for participating today. I think you provided our communities with a lot of good information and background on how you ran your campaign. So thank you so much, Tim.